An iconic image that continues to inspire protest. This mock-up in Paris of a tank in Tiananmen Square was among the more eye-catching commemorations of the brutal crackdown on pro-democracy activists in Beijing 30 years ago. The NGO behind the event says nothing has changed in China.
We want to celebrate this figure and in the same way celebrate the new resistance in China. The journalists, the lawyers, the feminist activists, the trade unionists, the students. Despite the fact that society is as controlled and repressive as it was 30 years ago, they continue to give life to the spirit of Tiananmen.
The EU joined in calls for Chinese authorities to acknowledge their role in the events of June 1989, when an unknown number of protesters were killed. A number of soldiers also died. The image of the lone demonstrator confronting a tank column became an enduring symbol for Chinese dissidents at home and abroad. 3 decades later, the uprising still troubles China's rulers and public commemorations are banned. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Well, Philippe Lecorre was a French radio reporter on the square in June 1989, and he's now a senior fellow for the Carnegie Endowment for International Relations in the United States, and he joins me now from Boston. Thanks for taking time to talk to us here on Euronews now. Describe to us, if you can, what was it like being there over those days?
Well, these were very different times, obviously. There was no internet, no mobile phone. For a reporter to cover such an event that involved cycling back and forth to the square, to the Tiananmen Square from the hotel where we were staying. Beijing was still pretty much a bicycle city, and obviously it was difficult to do live reporting because we didn't have the tools. So a couple of international channels were able to do that, but certainly I wasn't at the time for Radio France International. And obviously, it was a matter of watching as many things as possible and spending time on the phone in my hotel room to report these events.
Have you been surprised by the reaction from Beijing? I'm thinking of what the defense minister said just a few days ago, as in, this was an important step for China to take in order to make the changes which, has led to the country being where it is now today.
Well, there's been a book published called The People's Republic of Amnesia by a journalist called Louisa Lim. I think, it's very much a Communist Party policy to try to erase these events from the people's memories. Certainly, Beijing has been a very quiet place today and yesterday, unlike Hong Kong, which has, gathered 200,000 people commemorating the events. So I think, it's very hard for the younger generation because they haven't been told about this. At the same time, you have the official line, which is, when officials travel abroad, like the defense minister who was in Singapore, as you just said, the official line is, we did the correct thing, which was to stop the events. And there's no question that, using the army was the right thing. There's no question that, we could have used water cannons or things like that, like in most countries. The military basically defends itself for what it did. And of course, it was an order coming from the very top of the hierarchy. At the time, the Central Military Commission was headed by Deng Xiaoping, who, of course, the paramount leader at the time.
Well, as you stated there, there's been a sort of a suppression, one might say, of the events of that night. Do you feel that, Chinese people, the younger generation, have a sort of a hunger or a desire to learn about what happened then?
Well, it's very hard to tell because when you speak to them in China, they do not want to. Either they don't know about it, they haven't heard about it. There's no, people don't talk about it in the classrooms, and of course, those who were present, their parents, sometimes their grandparents, might have, some stories to tell. But the way China is being run these days, it's difficult to discuss things that are very controversial. And Tiananmen, as you know, as well as the date of June 4th, these terms are being banned from the Chinese internet. So it's very difficult. Now, of course, Chinese people abroad, when you speak to them, including students in our universities, they are intrigued, and some of them, at first don't believe what happens, and then, of course, are engaged with us and try to find out more.
Philippe Lecourt, thanks for taking time to look back at those events in Tiananmen Square 30 years ago.